Case management is actually linked very closely to data walls and instructional books. The data walls actually give you the information about which students, which faces of the students you need to focus in on. The data wall helps staff come together to look at the data in a collective way, in a collaborative way, and really discerning what pieces of data are going to tell them something about the students, and then how are you going to progress, how are you going to monitor progress, which is a really critical issue. Once we've identified the student from the data wall, what we do, we set up a case management. And the case management is an opportunity to bring collective knowledge of the school, and we would bring all the information that we have about that student. It would be the learning information, so that we'd be looking at work samples, what the child's doing in class. There would be any assessments that they've actually been doing, and we'd bring those to the session. The purpose of the case management is to focus on the learning and see if you can focus on what the problem is, and using the expertise around the table to build the knowledge base of going forward of what to do with this student. A student could come to a case management several ways. The teachers have identified that the student is stuck and not making progress, and we're not just talking about students that aren't learning, they're kids or students that are at the top end and aren't making the progress as well. What we also have is the capacity for a teacher to self-nominate, that I've got a student in my class that I'm stuck on. They're not going in the direction. So it's a really great opportunity for a teacher to be able to say, I'm having trouble with this student and their learning, not trouble in a behaviour way, I'm actually having trouble how to make progress with this student. And what it does, it gives that teacher an opportunity to put it on the table. The thing that happens in case management also is that if you include other teachers there, it's actually a capacity building process, so that other teachers, they might be listening and joining in about the student that on this day is on the table, but the reality is there could be well and truly another student in their class who has similar problems, and the teacher's saying, aha, I can use that with Mary as well as Billy. So it's a capacity building process. When we have a case management, we're very clear about bringing the student, who is the student, bringing the learning agenda. We don't focus on the behaviour of the student. We really want to focus on what's happening with this student, their learning. We want the teacher to have confidence that they can take some next steps, and then we must check in regularly every 2 weeks to see how it's going. Then we can see what the progress the student is making.
Thanks, Trish. So you've brought Lucy's work samples for us today. Would you just like to tell us some of your observations of the work that she's done?
Just to give you a little bit of a background about Lucy, she's a very high achiever. She likes to be challenged in class. Before she came to school, she had lots of exposure to books and to writing, and so when she actually came to school, she was already a reader and a writer and knew what literacy was all about. So my main thing that I'm bringing to the conference today is the fact that I need to be extending Lucy. She's achieving well, but at the moment I need some ideas of how to move her forward. So that's what I'd ask.
What in particular would you like to move forward in? What area would you like?
Well, with her writing, basically she does a very good job with her writing, but she's often rushes. I'd also too, I've been working on the editing skills with her, but not getting the success and the outcomes that I would really appreciate with that. She wants to make sure that what she writes is correct the first time, and sometimes doesn't take as many chances. She's not a risk taker as far as that is concerned.
This is probably a good time for us to have a look at some of her work samples to see what she can do,
Great.
So that we can see what her next step would be. So if we want to have a look at some of the work samples that she's provided. and note down what we see are the good things that she has been able to do.
She's definitely got a voice or a persona when she writes.
I would agree. She has obviously done a lot of reading because, she uses her imagination. The notion of a kangaroo living in a castle is quite novel and original. And the language, love to smooch.
To king-size bed, nice way. She's got a good sense of a sentence.
Yes.
Yeah. She's capitals and full stops.
Yeah.
And some very sentences.
And you can see the spelling's really quite good.
Browning, that's
And she's 6, right? She's 6.
Yes, yeah.
she's got some apostrophes for contractions too.
Yeah. And she's joining sentences too, particularly in the early one. She's using because, because he's so handsome, rather than just stating a fact. So that's beginning to use some complex sentences.
The table, what do you think would be her critical need from what you've seen and just the suggestions that people have had?
Well, I think that unless I encourage her to be able to edit more carefully, then we're not going to be able to achieve the outcome that we want, and that is to develop the sentence structure and the vocab and the descriptions within her writing. So I'd probably, the first focus would be the editing, her editing skills. How can I encourage her to spend more time going back rereading her work, and then how to actually improve that.
So we're talking about that within the context of process writing, but in
Yes.
that cycle, she probably skips over editing.
Yes, that's right.
Races to say she's done.
And so she sees, because she is so good with her writing, she sees that she's finished, that she doesn't need to go further.
So we might just think
The
about
other
some
thing
strategies that Trish could employ.
The other thing is around that organisation. I noticed last year that this was a problem too. She has so much she wants to say and so much she wants to get down. I was using some drawing strips, so some cartoon strips, or she liked to help her do some planning before she writes. We're starting to help her organise her thoughts a little bit more.
Okay.
So like a storyboard?
Like a little
She
storyboard.
would organise it first and write it next?
Yeah.
Could she do some of that planning in an oral form as well by talking to her
Oral rehearsal?
partner? Yes.
Can you hold your numbers out forward?
The diocese asked us to use this high yield strategy at the beginning of last year. The purpose of it really is for us to gather data about what is happening in classrooms, looking at the consistency of practice, looking at whether the goals of the school are reflected in the teaching and learning in the learning spaces.
Okay, so do you have a better understanding now?
That when you do like 16 and 16 that you
Generally, we do 3 walks a week at minimum. I take my assistant principal, lead teachers with me when possible. And in St Joseph's, we do 2 walks a year where the whole staff are engaged. When we visit the classrooms, and we have an opportunity to talk to the children about their learning, the 5 questions that we ask them are: what are you learning? How are you doing? How do you know? How can you improve? And where do you go for help? What were some of the elements that Jeanette, as lead teacher, you've identified for us to see?
Well, I thought this morning we could perhaps look at the learning intentions and success criteria, and are they visible in the classrooms? And also perhaps ask some of the students the 5 questions: what are you learning, how do you know, and see if they can refer back to the success criteria and learning intentions.
At first I thought it was, people coming in judging you, but I know it's the complete opposite. Teachers actually come in and it's all positive, which is fantastic, because they actually tell you what you're doing right, what the kids are learning. They provide positive feedback, and I think it starts a discussion between the teaching staff about what we're doing and how we can improve the students' level of education.
By going in regularly, you're seeing what the consistency is in the practice. You can see the real picture. You get to speak to the children regularly, have the feedback from them regularly. You can see whether displays are changing, whether the learning intentions are for this activity today or are they from last week. It shows you the alignment, it shows you the consistency, and it also shows you the wonderful work that the teachers are doing.
What we're noticing in our system is that there is an increase in the baseline of instructional practice and expertise of leaders, particularly in the last few years. And why that is because they're participating in professional learning with teachers, with specialist teachers. And so their expertise, they know what quality looks like. They're engaging in data conversations, in learning conversations as a routine. They have very close links with academic partners.
Instructional walks have been a very valuable professional experience for the staff at this school. It's a very valuable leadership experience for me because it allows me to be part of the instruction. I'm aware of the issues that teachers are facing. I'm aware of the needs. I'm aware of the resources that we do or do not have. So it helps me in a whole variety of ways with leadership.